Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani. This is America's Mayor Live, and there you see the incomparable Dr. Maria with me. And I have Dr. Maria on because we're going to begin the show by analyzing the Ashley Babbitt case. As you know, the administration has. Now you have to get this right for me, Doctor. They reached an agreement in principle.
In principle,
which means they haven't signed up all the little details. And the family is going to get $30 million for wrongful death.
For wrongful death, which says a lot. We knew pretty early on it was murder. The investigation was a sham. No one was interviewed who was outside of the doors. No one heard him say, "Stop or I'll shoot."
And he never did.
He never did. This was a substandard officer who post the murder of Ashley, meaning after, not posting it online, who post the murder of Ashley Babbitt, got a promotion, an atypical bonus, and then a raise. Was this all planned? Mayor Giuliani he's done several podcasts on this and on common sense. And you can still look that up on his Rumble channel or
within
his
2
YouTube
days.
Channel.
Within 2 days of the incident, I explained that this was a first-degree murder investigation, and I explained exactly why. There is no question about it. This is one of the great miscarriages of justice, and I wear two things for two miscarriages of justice: September 11 and Ashley Babbitt.
I don't think they can see.
I don't know if you can see both of these.
Raise it up a little bit. There you go.
I'm going to wear them until these are resolved.
So in the footage that you can see on many of Rudy's Common Sense podcasts, again on YouTube, his YouTube channel, although we prefer you go to his Rumble channel because Rumble doesn't censor, there were police officers in front of that door, 3 of them. And the crowd started going to that door. If they truly wanted to protect that hallway, those 3 officers would have dispersed that little crowd. Instead.
Well, we should also, let's add one other thing that we didn't know at first. But then if you continue on and watch it, you realize that those police officers had, within 10 feet of them, about 10 police officers in riot gear with machine guns. So when you first look at it, you might think those police officers might feel they were overwhelmed by this relatively small crowd.
We have that clip ready if you want.
They had 5 to 10 police officers in riot gear within touching distance, and they had the guy who shot and killed her had about 6 cops on his side. So
let's look at that tape.
So let's look at the tape, and what you're going to see is how the police officers extraordinarily gave up their post and allowed them to go into Pelosi's chamber.
So there's the police officers guarding the door.
Yeah, taller than anybody in the crowd.
There are several identified people in the crowd that are wearing Trump hats that are known Antifa agitators.
The whole thing was a big sham.
Including the person taping this, Jaden, who was paid by CNN and who's heard on tape telling people to breach the Capitol.
Now, they're supposed to be protecting Nancy Pelosi's office.
And there's so many people. It's just, they're going to push their way up here.
There are at least three police officers.
So they talk together
I don't want to see you
and they start to leave. Doesn't make any sense, any logical sense.
That's what I'm saying. We'll make a path, bro. Please, just let us make a path. Just let us make a path.
What the film is deliberately not showing.
See, you just mouth, if you
There
can
they
read
go.
lips, one of the
Watch 'em.
officers
There
says,
they
let's
go.
go.
There they go. And now
Here's the Antifa people destroying property.
they're trying to knock the door down, which
You actually, at one point, there's Ashley. You can see her peeking through. She's telling them to stop.
No! There's a gun! There's a gun! There's a gun!
now a gun appears, and instead of shooting the people with the weapons that are trying to break the door down, he shoots an unarmed 5'2" woman who's much further away. Notice how he went. You notice how the gun ignores the guys who are knocking the door down and shoots the furthest and least threatening target.
So you see on the stairwell, all those armed police
These
officers.
people were within striking distance.
Yep.
Oh,
Look at
now
he's
he's gonna
doing.
do. Now he's looking. Now he's trying to do something.
Yep. And this really bothers me as a medical personnel too. They delayed medical care. She is in critical condition, being shot in the neck, and they're not moving emergently.
All these people have. Look at those weapons. They're phones. They're selfie sticks.
Every single one of those cops could have prevented him from going over. Every single one of those cops was available to help those cops who gave up their post.
It makes me as angry as the first time we saw this. To see this again.
All you have to do is watch this, and if you have any common sense, much less have prosecuted, 50 murder cases, I convict that guy in a second. I convict him of first-degree murder in a second. You know what the standard is for a police officer to use his weapon that way? He has to be in personal fear of his life. Well, he wasn't in personal fear of his life. And if he was at all, it was the two guys banging the door down.
Yep.
And he was closer to them. They would have been much easier to shoot. Boom, boom. You got a guy with a big thing banging the door down, trying to come in, and you got some girl all the way over there who, I don't know if you've even seen her, if you was told to watch her, who, if she came over the top, would have been on her backside or on her face. Now, you saw the 5 or 6 cops in riot gear that the 3 had available to them to protect them, so they didn't have to give up their post. I don't want to go on and belabor this, but I can show you a film of all the cops that were on Bird's side. Mm-hmm. He had about 8 available to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no need for this. None. Zero.
When she came over, 5 cops could have been on top of her, handcuffing her instead of blowing her brains out. And for that, you go to jail for the rest of your life in America. So naive Dr. Maria and I, when we had this tape after 4 or 5 days, said we should give it to the U.S. attorney.
They approached us, I think, somehow.
They wanted material, but I said to you, I don't believe they'll cover up a murder.
Yeah.
Was I wrong?
You were wrong. I opened up, I had a particular storage site that we had people that had infiltrated Antifa. We had footage they weren't showing the public from the Capitol. So I had it all in a storage area. And however the government came to know that I had it, maybe as Mayor Giuliani saying through the mayor, I opened it up to them. I thought naively, this is the government, the Justice Department. The people are going to have justice. And I don't know what they did with it. It was all covered up.
Yeah, instead they tried to put me in jail for January 6th. Yeah. And it was dismissed by a judge. Yep. It was dismissed by a judge appointed by Barack Obama because it was so unjust and wacky. And
Stephen, I think you're on TV with us. So
what a terrible era.
On our background.
What a terrible era in American history.
Terrible.
A terrible, terrible era in American history.
This is when I talk about this on my show, the Dr. Maria Show on Lindell TV tonight at 9 p.m. I pre-taped it at 5. I have this gentleman on, Prather is his last name, Chad Prather. And we're talking about how probably for decades we've had corruption in our government, but most people were pretty naive because they went along with their life. They have a good life. They weren't worried about it. It really came through in the Biden administration where we learned through, this is the one good side of the pandemic. Parents saw through Zoom what what the teachers were teaching their children.
Yeah, it's the reason for the reform.
Wouldn't have known.
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
But so it's unbelievable how we can't trust healthcare. We can't trust the court system. So we can't trust our Justice Department, the White House. Now maybe we could, but we couldn't. And we definitely, the CIA, they're in a league of their own. They can make things disappear and they can make people disappear.
Yeah, this case has to be prosecuted.
Has to be.
I come from a tradition, the NYPD, that there's never a closed murder case.
Yeah.
For 200 years, you're still going to investigate a murder case. You know why? And we've lost this in America because human life is so important. Yeah. That's the bedrock of Western civilization.
It's no longer
that distinguishes us from all other civilizations, and that is the importance of human life.
That's why the Marxist ideology to dehumanize us by saying you can kill a baby in the womb at any stage, like it's crazy. It really is
Well,
crazy.
This is why you got to listen.
Oh, one last thought, Mayor.
Yes.
I feel like the monetary judgment is for the grieving family for taking away that precious person from their life. It's never going to
Oh,
bring
it's
it
completely
back
justified
Ashley,
and
right? But
yeah.
it's for them where I feel justice for Ashley is the conviction of Officer Byrd
Yeah, so it won't happen again.
and anybody who covered this up.
There were at least there were really three purposes to punishment in the criminal justice system that emerges from English law. The two main ones are justice
Mm.
and deterrence. So you don't do it again.
Mm.
Well, people should be scared like hell to go along with a corrupt administration or go along with the Democrat plot on January 6th. I mean, that was it.
Why
That
did
was
Nancy Pelosi have her daughter and a whole production crew there? They wanted
Oh,
violence.
why is
They
Nancy
did everything
Pelosi?
to incite
Why
violence.
is Nancy Pelosi worth hundreds of millions?
Yeah. They had officers on a position of power down on a crowd, just standing there and doing their rubber guns and all kinds of pepper
Yeah, well,
spray. They
I mean-
incited violence.
That is a little further than Nancy, the insider trader.
Get so mad.
But Nancy D'Alessandro, who knows the depth of her evil? One might not know the depth of the evil of the little girl from Baltimore, huh?
Hmm.
Nancy D'Alessandro, father, a mayor of questionable integrity,
Alleged.
which
to be
is about as kind a thing as I can
connected.
say about him. Someday we'll do the whole thing on him, okay? Also, today, quite a revelation. And what I'm talking about is the cartel boss who says what the Democrats deny. And this was on CNN. And of course, they muffled it up as much as they could. But shall we play it, Ted? Because you're the one who called my attention to it.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Sweet little Vanessa did saying this egregious interview with a cartel member who says he respects Trump for standing up for his people, but because of us consumers in America and our desire for drugs is why they're in business.
He's 100% right.
Yeah.
Not that should excuse him from being executed, but it's 100% right.
Right.
And they're a terrorist group.
Okay. I think Stephen's ready, Mayor. Go for it.
You are a terrorist. The cartels have been labeled a foreign terrorist organization. What do you make of that?
Estou vendo a situação, não teremos que comer.
What's your message to Donald Trump?
Oh, they have it in Spanish. How come the one I saw was in English?
Seguro é buscar o melhor para os filhos.
Can we make it full screen?
Se não hubiera consumidores, pues no lo pararan.
There is a lot of
Well, that's a very good point. If they didn't have customers, they wouldn't be able to sell it, right? And who encourages all the customers? All the damn Democrats who have passed laws for marijuana. I mean, they'd like to pass laws making all drugs legal. And now it turns out that marijuana is extraordinarily dangerous. And we've got Democrat states who are in love with the fact that in Colorado, I mean, I didn't want to go close to Colorado when I was in Arizona because I might get, just by breathing things in. And that's why.
You can do that in New York. For crying out
Yeah, I
loud.
mean, it's
Place
ridiculous how
stinks
they're
now.
ruining the brains of our young people with marijuana, much less all the rest of it. And this is actually right. Instead of encouraging a market in the United States, we should use all of our powers of public relations to convince young people that narcotics, drugs, illegal drugs are dangerous for them. And it's not hip or cool or whatever the hell you want to call it, or acceptable. So you'll be acceptable with the crowd that you become a shrunken brain drug addict. I mean, it's ridiculous. And the Democrats have been, it's the Democrat blue states that are the most lenient on drugs
Mayor, may I say,
and
too,
killing our kids.
it's all about consumerism, right? So if the consumers didn't think it was okay to do all these drugs, it'd be less coming in the country. But the cartels have shifted. They could sell a bag of heroin. I'm making up this number because I don't know
Oh,
it
it's so
anymore. I
different.
used to know it, but say a bag of heroin for $10. So they sell it once. Okay, but they make millions upon millions on this. Child sex trafficking. This is disgusting. Believe me. One child they can sell 10 to
Oh, it's
20
worse than
times a
drugs.
day.
It's actually
And
worse than
each
drugs.
child is considered to be marketable up to $250,000 a year. It is a sick perversion. To me, I can only speak for myself. It's the devil at work. And he's got a hold because guess which country is the number one in sex trafficking? The United States of America.
And the Democrats want to bring back to America the ones that Trump threw out because they haven't gotten enough kids yet.
And you look at all of them, rape of a child, rape of a child. You
Well,
go
how
down the
about the
list,
guy?
rape of a
How
child.
about the one that they're making a big deal? The Maryland father.
Yeah.
The Maryland father who
from
beat the living
El
daylights out of him.
Salvador.
Did you hear the tape of his wife?
Yeah.
When she was allowed to tell the truth, how scared she
Right.
was of him? Well, we'll be back. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back very quickly. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because we like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're gonna go into the roaster and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
This is Rudy Giuliani back with you on America's Mayor Live, and I want to thank Dr. Maria for her insightful commentary and coverage and alerting me to that cartel guy who really makes you wonder why the Democrats want to bring them all back to the United States after you get rid of them, right? That's amazing, isn't it? I mean, but what they haven't done enough rapes, and they haven't done enough child trafficking, and they haven't done enough drug dealing or shooting or whatever the hell else they do. They sure as hell don't spread goodwill. That's for sure. Well, Trump is on a roll, isn't he? There's a really great article by Victor Hanson Davis, who, if you don't know him, is probably one of the wisest men in America, about how with all of this stuff about polls and everything else and tariffs, and he should change on tariffs, maybe what he should do is just do the right thing, which he does. This whole idea of tariffs has already netted much more good for this country than all of the nitwit intellectual pinhead jackasses could even imagine. Just count up. I looked at a list of the investments in the United States since Trump has taken office. I don't know. I don't have the time to add it up. I'm going to have to hire somebody to do it. I mean, the amount is astounding. It's got to be that there's never been this kind of investment in America so people can avoid the tariffs. And it's the right thing to do. There's nothing honest or decent or about a unfair system. like the one that allowed China to have a monopoly on rare minerals, just like it tried to have a monopoly on legitimate drugs and everything else, or just like it is allowed to destroy other countries. So what he's trying to do is right. It's the right thing. Maybe we do have to pay a little bit more for a while to get rid of Red China. But if we don't get rid of Red China, we're going to be living in a communist dictatorship, and we're all going to be speaking Chinese. And sorry, I don't want to speak Chinese. I like English. Want me to speak Latin? I'll do that. But I'm not speaking Chinese. Latin is a much more beautiful language than Chinese. But, you know, a lot of operas in Chinese, right? So Victor Hanson Davis, I commend his column to you. Post or Wall Street Journal? It's in the Post. It's very, very good about how sometimes it's about doing the right thing. And we shouldn't emphasize so much, oh, he should soften on tariffs and he should do this and he should do that. He sure as hell shouldn't soften on tariffs to China. He's cracking them. I'm telling you, take it from me, he's cracking them. He's destroying those bullies. They've never had anybody stand up to them. I would like him to get tougher with Putin, but he sure as hell has been banging the shit out of China. And if we don't do it, as I said, we're all going to be part of Klaus Schwab's one world ruled by China. And the first one they'll do away with is Klaus Schwab. That they always get rid of the Quislings first. I agree with President Trump that Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. Long overdue. No one seems to notice that the recruitment in the military is reaching astonishing numbers, when last year at this time, we couldn't pay somebody to go in the military. Maybe that says something about the morale of this country, not the morale created by the Chinese-dominated media. Today, as we pointed out with Kara on the earlier show, which you didn't get a chance to see, the president held a really interesting press conference that really announced two things. And he had on the right and the left, the Democrat mayor of Washington, D.C., Muriel Bowser, and the commissioner of football, Roger Goodell, who, if you might remember, like was a big supporter of Black Lives Matter, woke as can be. Perfectly okay with taking the knee and, you know, maybe not burning the American flag, but it always surprised me because they can't be a larger percentage of patriotic people than the football fans. And this guy Goodell was sucking up to the left wing like crazy. Well, Trump must have really enjoyed having both of them standing back and having to applaud and cheer. And also the head of the Washington Redskins, who didn't have the guts to keep the name Redskins, and has called them the Washington Guardians, like they were named for a prophylactic or something, the Guardians.
Here, I want to show you something that President Trump really appreciated, and it's the rendering of the new stadium in that they're talking about for the Redskins or whatever. What are they called now?
Well, they're actually in Maryland right now.
Well, yeah, but look at
it's
what
going to come back to D.C. where the RFK Stadium
check
was,
this out,
which I went to many times.
D.C. could soon be home to the most ambitious stadium project. This isn't another steel and concrete colossus with a transparent dome that frames the Capitol building and Anacostia in D.C.
So that is, you can imagine as a real estate guy how Trump appreciated
that. Yeah, it's fabulous.
Right? Isn't that great?
You know, I would have liked the old RFK Stadium, but I'm a traditionalist. I used to go to that stadium a lot. I would go there the first time I was in Washington because the Senators still played and watched baseball there. But
so it's had a resurgence, that whole area.
Yeah, that area used to be dangerous.
Oh yeah,
and it's become a pretty prosperous and good area now. And of course, this will only make it much better. But as I said, the Redskins built a stadium in the Redskins, the Guardians. Do you know that not 90% of Native Americans think it should be named Redskins? 90%. Who do we do this for? Why did we change the name from Redskins to Guardians when Native Americans were perfectly fine? They thought it actually brought attention to their culture.
Especially with the names like Chiefs and some of these other ones that we've been seeing.
I told you about Massapequa. There's a big battle with the Massapequa High School. They're known as the Chiefs, and the state of New York has said you have to get rid of it. And everybody in Massapequa, Republican and Democrat, wants to keep it. And they've got several, dare I say, Indian tribes come in and agree with them that it should stay Chiefs. And they actually did a whole thing on how Chiefs really evokes a lot of their most famous and heroic people.
Amen.
Chiefs of the tribe.
It's an honor. But before we get too far,
what about Indians? Why do you take the word Indians away from the Cleveland Indians? What the hell's wrong with Indians?
And what's Cleveland now? What are they called?
Oh, they're another prophylactic. They're the Cleveland. They're the Cleveland Commanders.
Steamers.
Commanders.
Okay.
Commanders.
So
they're the Commanders.
Do you want some clips from the press conference where Trump announced the plans?
Yeah.
It's because you get to see Goodell in the back, and
yeah, it's really good watching all these libs have to smile.
Such an honor to have.
Look at that phony smile.
Great for everybody. Great for our country. Be something very special. There's no scene like it. There's no site like it. My whole life was based on sites, locations.
Maria,
and as soon as I looked at that rendering,
I need
it's
something here.
It's going to really be beautiful. Interestingly, I didn't know exactly where it's sat relative to the Capitol, but the stadium, to go back, is right behind the Capitol, miles behind, but nevertheless visually right behind it. So it's going to be an architect's dream, whoever the architect is chosen, and the owner. It's going to be something special. I think it's going to be great for the area. It will be top of the line. I know these people very well, and they only know about top of the line. And I would say that more will be put into the stadium than would be put into a identical stadium of a similar size. I think they're going to do a special because of the importance of the location. I have no doubt they'll do a special job.
Is that Bowser behind him?
Yeah, that's Bowser behind him there. She spoke very eloquently, and
she looks different.
And very. I mean, I give her credit for. I mean, a lot of Democrats won't work with him. I mean, why you won't work with the president of the United States is out of your mind. I mean, I worked with President Clinton for 7 years for the good of my city. And I probably work with President Clinton as well, or better than many Democrat mayors did.
Hey, here's a good question for a mayor here. What do you think of the height requirement or the height limit for building in Washington, D.C.? Do you think that should be changed?
No, I think it shouldn't be changed.
It should not be changed.
Certainly not now, not with the security problems that we have.
Okay.
No. I mean, maybe at one time it was a little silly when we didn't have, but now I'm so worried about Washington, D.C., I can't tell you. Look, you don't realize I used to be worried because we only had, a percentage grasp on the number of terrorists we have in this country. What Biden did to you for the last 4 years deserves several eternities in hell. I mean, he let in bare minimum 15 million people. If we have a clear background on 3 million of them, it's a lot. Here's what I'm telling you. We don't know who's in this country. And they're here in large numbers. And despite all the Democrat cover-up, all the media cover-up, all the bull about this, if I ran a terrorist group, I would have sent all my most dangerous people in over the last 4 years. If I ran an organized crime group, I'd send in all my dangerous people. If I ran a human trafficking group, I'd make America the #1 place for human trafficking. If I wanted to make billions of dollars in fentanyl, I'd send it in like crazy. And if I wanted to put agents in your country, I would do it like crazy, particularly since Biden was paying for a lot of the Chinese coming in through the CBP-1 program. Remember, Biden got $31 million from the Chinese. I am not foolish enough to assume that was just for the fun of it. China is very shrewd, knows what it's buying, and it bought the president. And they got their money's worth. Who knows how many Chinese spies are running around this country? Who knows how many terrorists are running around this country? A hell of a lot more than on September 11th. So they're not there for nothing. And particularly the Muslim terrorists, they're in it forever. That's what their leader, Mohammed, told them to do, to kill us. So why wouldn't they follow their leader unless someone tells them not to? And there are a lot of very good and very decent Muslims. But there are not many that stand up against it. This isn't like there's a big squad of Muslims who are telling other Muslims, let's forget that crap that Muhammad taught us. Takes a lot of guts to do that. There are some, but they're very, very small in number, and they certainly put their lives at risk every time they do it. So Trump made it clear he's not going to run for a third term. I'm going to say a fourth term, a third term. Well, immediately they began, and they asked him, and he mentioned 2 names. Must be a lot of Republicans really upset. He mentioned only 2 names. Now, I don't know if the order is important, but here's the order: Rubio and Vance. He said there are a lot of good successors, a lot of good qualified Republicans. We have a much deeper bench. After all, there's Rubio and Vance and others. So there we go. We're getting started already. There they are. Please, guys, remain friends. I ran against John McCain, and after it was over, we were even better friends than before, because we both had respect for each other and pointed out why I thought I was better. He pointed out why he thought he was better. He won, and I maintained my respect for him. The only thing I felt very bad about with John wasn't even his disputes with Donald Trump. I understood the 2 of them are pretty hard-headed and whatever. I tried to put them together several times. The night they both won the primary, for example. Never succeeded. I felt very, very sad at his funeral, though, when Megyn used the eulogy to attack Trump. I didn't think that was right. And I just have to say that. And I love John. I do. Also, there's not much controversy over the president cutting off NPR and PBS. There really isn't. I mean, the left wing is making a little squawk over it. But do you know the first thing I did as mayor? I gave up the New York City radio station, which we were spending $12 million on.
Well, NPR.
I said the only people who have radio and television stations are communist countries and Nazi countries.
Well, see, NPR doesn't even try to hide it, right? You turn it on and you know what you're getting. I actually listen to it because it does have local programming, and you kind of do have to see what the craziest views of the farthest left you can get are.
Right.
And it's illuminating, even for the entertainment
that's
value.
good, but then they should pay for it.
Oh, and actually, a lot of it is privately funded, and that's why they make such a big deal about them not being being public radio. But GM pays for their stuff, oil companies.
Yeah, they get a lot of woke. They get a lot of woke contributors.
Oh yeah, and all these foundations, these family foundations that have.
I mean, their coverage of the news is absurd. It's like Pravda. They cover the news like they're a government agency. They really don't get that much money from the government. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, they cover it like an anti-government agency. If it's Trump.
Actually, they're not a government agency. They're a Democratic Party agency.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the NPR part is a woke agency. They're like the Prime Minister of England and the Prime Minister of Canada, who's going to come to the White House tomorrow. That's going to be interesting to cover that. We'll see if the guy takes off on Trump like Shorty did.
It's hard to sound threatening with the Canadian accent. It just sounds so friendly.
Yeah, but he is
right?
Carney tries to be threatening. I mean, they are, in terms of competition, look what's happening to China. I can't imagine what's happening to Canada.
President Trump, we got to talk about these tariffs,
Canada's economy is about this big.
Oh.
We got states that are bigger than Canada, bigger economies than Canada.
Well, we do. We have states that are bigger than countries.
I mean, Canada would have a hard time competing with Texas alone.
They could not compete with
Texas. Texas wipe them out.
Oh yeah, Texas has a lot to stand on their own mineral wise and all.
So something is really wrong with Reagan Airport, National Airport, whatever. So the other day they had another incident of a Black Hawk helicopter coming within 200 feet of an airliner and about 2,000 feet of another airliner, both of which had to be diverted. And something went wrong in there. And I know there's a great fear that we don't have enough air traffic controllers, but this wasn't about that. This was about their equipment not working. They had the air traffic controllers, but they weren't getting the signals. Something went wrong. We're watching.
Looks like a pretty big near miss. You can see they sort of highlighted the helicopter in the previous shot. Let's see what we get here. So there's the plane.
What the heck do they keep flying over there for? I mean, really stupid.
It's like hazing or something. Okay.
I mean, this is why would you send a helicopter in there? That's one of the busiest airspace. Look right below it. Look at that.
That's not too crazy, but why risk it?
Well, I mean, you don't realize that that's very, very close. It looks bigger than it was, but at the closest point, they were 200 feet apart. But it's not as if this happens in the middle of, in the middle of Kansas or something.
Yeah, go practice in Kansas.
You are looking right there, a little circle. And maybe I could put it around New York, Los Angeles, a couple other places, as the busiest airspace. In fact, that might be the busiest in the country. I don't know. I mean, New York is pretty busy because you have LaGuardia, you have Kennedy, and you have Newark, all basically within the same airspace. And then you have some private airports hanging on that. And Westchester is not a private airport, hanging right on top of it. You got two out on Long Island. And but this is even more of a closed space. All you got to do is avoid going over the Potomac like that stupid air.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, they can't fly over DC proper, which is what a lot of people point out to me when they come to DC. They say, "Wow, no, yeah." And so I guess they have to squeeze
fly over Manhattan.
They have to squeeze into that lane there.
Oh, it's bad for tourism. Yes, so would a helicopter crash be bad for tourism? Nobody would come. Sometimes you have to have an adult running things, and not babies. Maybe that's the last time anybody does it, huh? I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know who is telling people to do that, but whoever it is should be fired. Somebody else should be put in charge, and there should be no flights over that airspace by helicopters unless it's to save the life of the president or somebody or whatever.
Yeah, on July 4th, too. Actually, that's the one thing I remember in DC on July 4th. They do have significant helicopter traffic over because they really celebrate there. And so,
well, then hopefully they don't have they shut off the planes for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Well, you also should know that Newark Airport in New York has now been declared unsafe, and it's about last on the list of airports in the country. So if you're in New York, in the New York area, don't get all happy. You got a real problem there with Newark Airport. I have something very, very sad to report. And of course, maybe it wouldn't be a matter of national attention, although it should be. And that is that one of the New York City agencies that probably is the most important is falling apart. And it's an agency that I created on the recommendation of Howard Wilson, who was the head of my Department of Investigation and also a great lawyer, great legal career, great lawyer, great man. Had handled many, many very important cases, including the prosecution of Mario Biaggi, congressman. The first year I was in office, we lost a young girl named Elisa Izquierdo. She was only 4 or 5 years old. And we lost her because we kept shuttling her from one family to another family to another family. And then we gave her back to her mother, who was clearly a drug addict and not capable, and we never checked, meaning the city never did. And this spanned my predecessor's administration and a little bit of mine. And when I came into office, I had promised, and I had said that I was going to, change the process. And it wasn't the first thing that I did for which I feel eternally guilty. And Elisa died about 5 or 6 months, 7 months while I was in office. And I went to her funeral, which happens to have been in the church I was baptized in, St. Francis of Assisi. And I vowed that this wasn't going to, I couldn't vow that it would never happen again because I can't control human conduct. But I vowed that we were going to make every effort to stop it, and we were going to be the best in the country within a year. And I asked one of my best friends, Howard Wilson, who was in my administration, to get the best people. And he knew nothing about children's services, but he knew a lot about law enforcement and protection. And he just had a hell of a brain, and he had common sense. And very quickly, as he was doing his investigation, he said, Mayor, I think the biggest problem here is that the welfare of children is a subdivision under your Department of Welfare, which is the agency that gives out welfare and is probably one of the most crooked that you have, because we were giving out welfare, 3 and 4 times to the same person, almost regularly. And I had to stop it, investigate it. I had Bob Morgenthau put a lot of them in jail. He said, but the problem is that all the congressmen, all the senators, all the assemblymen, they want a lot more money for welfare. And very often they'll take it from the children, because the children are who, that most Democrat politicians don't give a shit for the people they represent, right? Particularly in big cities that have what we call ghettos, right? Otherwise we wouldn't have them. We've already given trillions of dollars to those places. They could be like Monaco if the politicians that represent them didn't steal most of the money or give it to their political opponents. So these kids were trapped under this absolutely crooked welfare system that started with Roosevelt and got worse under Johnson. And by the time I was there, was, as bad as the mafia. And he said, these kids get cashed out. Nobody wants to work for them. They want to work for the bigger agency where you can make all the kickbacks. And then the ones you do get are like useless. And when they want money, it gets taken away from them. He said, it's got to be a standalone agency. I said, Howard, I don't want to create any more agencies. We have too many agencies. He said, yeah, but we have too many agencies and we have too little. This is too little. And we created it. And then my idea was to get Nick Scopetti to run it. Now, Nick has passed away. Nick was an exceptional patriot. Nick was one of the heads of the Knapp Commission that straightened out police corruption. He worked for Mayor Koch. He worked for Mayor Lindsay. He was a commissioner of investigation under Mayor Lindsay. He was a deputy mayor under Mayor Koch, and also a great lawyer, and all that time sacrificing the huge amount of money he could make as a private lawyer. He also was himself a foster child. And I knew Nick, he was my boss. And Nick and I got to know each other investigating corrupt policemen and staying up all night listening to tapes. And Nick would tell me about what happened with his parents and how his brothers and his brothers were in foster homes and what it was like and how strongly he felt about it. And so Nick was way beyond being a commissioner. He had already been like one of the top people in the city under 2 of my predecessors. And I said to Howard, we're going to get Nick to do it because this is all a question of who does it. By the way, all of this is all a question of who does it. And Howard said, I don't think he can get Nick to do it. I said, I know Nick's soul. I know his soul. I went to him and he did it. And he did it brilliantly for all of my administration. And he made it into the best welfare agency in the country. People would come to him within 2 years. People would come to him, and now we have so many children that have died under the incompetent New York City government. That is a disgrace. I mean, when people used to come up to me in New York and say, Mayor, you must feel terrible that they destroyed everything that you did. I sometimes would have to do everything I could to stop crying. Well, having destroyed this is a sin. These are some of the children, if you would take a look at the screen, these are some of the children that have died in just the last year because they weren't cared for. On the left is Nazia Million, and he and his mother were found dead inside the Bronx apartment on April 18. only promised cotton above, 4 was alive. After surviving on chocolate for 2 weeks. That means nobody went and visited them for 2 weeks from the Administration for Children's Services, even though there were odors coming from the apartment. That means the agency is lazy and doesn't give a shit. Or a Nazir be alive today. Now, to go back to it, because there's and that mother was under that mother who they didn't bother to go see after being dead in the apartment for 2 weeks had been under ACF supervision for years. And caseworkers would knock on the door, nobody would answer, and they never went ahead and did anything else. Oh, they didn't want to break in. And you're a trained worker in child abuse, and you got a woman who's a child abuser that you left the kid with because some stupid judge probably did that. You have no idea how stupid the New York judges are because they're all freaking political. Brian Santiago was found dead at 10 years old in a housing project next to his mother, Charlene Santiago. Both had starved to death. In New York City, they starved to death. If I were the mayor now, I would go nuts. I would shake up the whole agency. I'd fire everybody and bring all new people in. What the hell is going on, Adams? Wake up! The mom was under ACS supervision and had lost custody of the young child. What's the kid doing with her? Ariel Gonzalez, 4 months old, rushed to Lincoln Hospital with severe cocaine intoxication on August 10th, 2024, where he was pronounced dead. The neighbors had been reporting the mother, and ACS went and questioned, but made no conclusions. Maybe we should get rid of those workers. Maybe they have no instincts, or they're lazy as hell. They don't want to write up the report, which is more likely the case. Jamik Modlin, 4, starved to death in his Harlem apartment. He starved to death after his parents locked the food away in the kitchen cabinets. His parents at the time were the subject of 4 separate investigations for 2 years. They just couldn't figure out what to do about it. Joseph Habeen Jr. was 1 month old. He also starved to death, where he was found last July 20th. Also, the family was under investigation, but the agency refused to provide any details. Gisele Mirabel, 11 months. She drowned in the bathtub in the family's apartment with both parents who were under ACS supervision. Some supervision, huh? The girl's death was ruled a homicide. And then Danielle Timberlake, 5, died from a methadone overdose after being found foaming at the mouth in the Bronx apartment. That's a disgrace. That's a disgrace. I'll tell you why it's a disgrace. It doesn't have to happen. Is it possible that 1 or 2 of those would have happened with the very, very best child welfare agency in the world? Of course. Of course. Just like I got crime down by 60, 70%. I didn't get down by 100. And even with all the good work that Mike Bloomberg did, he didn't get it down by 100. You're never going to eliminate human misconduct completely. But this is ridiculous. There are certain things you can accomplish and certain things you can't. And there are certain priorities that exist, and children are a priority. And if they're not, you don't belong in public office. I don't know if you belong being a human being, but that's a different issue.
Can we call on our audience as well to pray for those who might still be in situations similar to these?
Absolutely. Of course, they should pray for them.
This has been hard. It's been hard researching this.
These kids are innocent as hell. And this is all political. This doesn't have to happen after years and years and years of putting so much money into this. But the money for it gets stolen. Don't you understand that? It gets stolen. It's like I'm preaching to deaf people. New York City has a budget that is larger than the budget of the state of Florida. New York City has 8 million people. Florida has 22 million people or 21 million. What the hell is New York City doing with all that money? It's sure not saving kids. It's stealing it. Now, I'll give you another one. New York State just finished its budget. It's $254 billion. The budget of the state of Florida, the state, is $120 billion, which makes the New York budget more than twice Florida's. And New York State has 18 million people, and Florida has 22 million people. Now, you're telling me that New York is 2.5 times more productive than Florida? Or would you rather tell me that New York steals a lot more money than Florida does? Well, if you're smart, you tell me the second. And do you know who the victims of all that stealing and all that theft and all that corruption is? These kids. Because you don't have real people in these agencies. You have crooks, political appointees, guys looking for kickbacks, looking for big homeless contracts. Why the hell do you think all those contracts for migrants are 3 times what they should be, so that everybody can get their kickbacks? Why do you think they like sanctuary cities? So they can get a lot of money. And why do you think Andrew Cuomo had all those old people killed? Because his biggest fundraisers, the nursing home industry came to him and said, "Hey, people get extra money when people die of COVID in the hospitals. How come we're getting cheated?" Of course, he'll deny it, but he's going to have to deny it to St. Peter and God someday. We'll see what happens. Hopefully, there would have been justice, but you're not going to get justice in New York. It's a completely crooked city. And he's the #1 candidate for mayor now. I suggest if you're over 65, leaving, because he may put you in a nursing home that has COVID.
The geriatric genocide is the term that I've been floating
just
around.
go talk to the families that lost their loved ones because of that guy. I'll give you another one that he did. He passed a law to make it easy to get parole. As a result of Cuomo, since 2018, when he passed that law, there were 43 cop killers sentenced to basically life imprisonment or on parole. They're out walking around. The cop killers are walking around, and they're about to do one that's very personally close to me. I mean, the victim was 42 cop killers walking around. Andrew, you want to be mayor? I'd be willing to go on a witness stand and testify there are 7 to 9 million criminals walking the street. There wouldn't be if you didn't pass the bail law. And you want to be mayor of New York City? Jeez, you should be. Why don't you go do something where, I don't know, get your staff to write another book for you. Except maybe this time they won't be city and state employees. Please, I say this to my friends in New York City. Stop being brainwashed as Democrats, please, please, please. Then we wouldn't have as many kids who were hurt like this. New York State has just decided to allow assisted suicide. So now you can basically get murdered everywhere in New York, right? At the beginning, if you're 6, 7, 8 months, 9 months in the womb, we can kill you. Maybe even a few days after you come out. And we can convince you to kill yourself if you feel a little depressed. And probably they're going to focus that on Republicans only.
Yeah, sorry, that was a picture of Dr. Kevorkian and his, I can't remember what the machine was called, but that was the machine that he used. And actually in my home state of Michigan. Oh my gosh, absolutely.
He looks normal. That guy looks normal.
And the more you look into his life, actually Al Pacino played him in an HBO series called You Don't Know Jack. And it goes through the whole assisted suicide drama that unfolded in Michigan. I wish Ted was with us because a lot of the names in it are ones that we encounter regularly in the course of Michigan politics, like who were the DAs at the time and
You know,
things like that.
there's an argument that people make for it that says, you know, people should be in charge of their own life. No, they shouldn't.
Do you find that in any circumstances it's appropriate, maybe towards the end of the life?
Well, if it happens naturally, I mean, Doctor,
Like pulling
Maria
the
is
plug
still
or
here.
something?
What's the accepted humane rule for someone who's terminal?
It's state by state.
But-
Vermont does have assisted suicide. Canada has a very lax assisted suicide.
Oh,
So
Canada.
what we're hearing is Vermont and Canada are on the
Well, they're both
end of the spectrum.
Vermont and Canada are like Moscow. I mean, Canada probably has encouraged suicide.
Like you get a tax
They
break.
probably have encouraged suicide, which is what the left wing wants. What Gates want. We have too many people.
And Klaus.
And Klaus Schwab thinks we have too many people.
We do not, but we were kind of the early battleground for the test when Kevorkian went on his crusade to enable it. Right,
You
the
have to
Farmington
put-
Hills and Bloomfield Hills. These are places you guys have been. Actually, when you visited Michigan, you visited Oakland County, where Kevorkian.
To say to oppose assisted suicide is to say that life is too important for a single individual, you know, to do that to themselves. You have obligations in life to others. It's not all about you. It is not all about you. And what happened and I've been giving this speech for 30 or 40 years. What happened with the left-wing philosophy, which is completely encouraged by Marx, life became, I should become everything I can be.
6 states have laws for
We're just hearing 6 states are assisted suicide is legal in 6 states.
Maine, Vermont, Montana, California, Washington State.
Maine, Vermont, California, Montana, Washington State. So some of these you'd expect. Montana is one of those. that I
Montana,
wouldn't.
probably libertarian. It's probably a libertarian concept. No, it's probably a libertarian concept. I mean, libertarians are also isolationists. So that's why I'm not a libertarian.
And also in
That's
rural
why I belong
areas,
to the party of Lincoln.
in rural areas, there is a lot of less access to mental health care and things like that. So Montana, it's a beautiful place. A lot of these places are.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean it could be beautiful, but doesn't mean they're right.
Amen.
But just one more warning. If we don't bring God back, we're never going to be saved. And if you are an atheist, you should want God back because you'll be living in a better world. There is nothing that solidifies a moral system more than belief in God and an afterlife. Nothing. If people start to believe there is no God, there is nothing greater than human beings, and that life is the end of it all, unless they're, very special people. There are special people. There is no incentive to lead a good life. None. And the reality is that if we use rational analysis, it is as logical and sensible that there is a God than there isn't. I believe it's actually even more logical. The rest of it is a leap of faith. So I would consider you, if you're an atheist, to be extraordinarily ignorant of science, because you cannot tell me how life begins. I can't tell you scientifically how life begins, but you can't tell me scientifically how it begins either. You can't negate the fact that there was a single creator. You can tell me there's a Big Bang. So who did the Big Bang? So I think it's time to bring God back. And I do hope that this group of cardinals who will vote are enlightened and they give us another John Paul II, who can really lead people beyond my own faith, but and get them to reach out to God in their own way, whichever way that is. So
before we sign off, we do want to encourage everyone. Dr. Maria is doing a very good special on the Babbitt, both the settlement and the murder itself. So she's on Lindell TV at 9.
And you also get her on Rumble. Last time I sent you to Lindell TV, they were a little late in going on, but get her on Lindell TV. And if something goes wrong, you can go to Rumble.
Yeah, Lindell TV's account on Rumble is hosting it. So yeah, that'll be. Well, I'm definitely tuning into that. That'll be exciting.
Too. That's why I'm signing off. And I love to do soccer time. And now that my son Andrew is going to be in charge of FIFA for the United States, we'll do even more soccer time. Maybe tomorrow night we'll have him on because he may be having a press conference about it tomorrow that I'm not supposed to say anything about.
Yeah.
I might get killed now. Well, pray for the people of Israel. Pray for the people of Ukraine, even more now that Putin is getting even worse. Time, Mr. President, to punch him in the nose. Every economic sanction possible, crush the murdering bastard. Number 3, pray for the people of Iran, and it's time to take out the nukes. Once and for all, no more talk, action, please. Also with the Houthis, time to get them over with. They're going to save lives. Sometimes the stronger you are and the tougher you are and the faster you do it, the more lives you save. So pray for our president and pray for the United States and pray for those children, huh? God bless America. Go to. It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk,